The autumn rain tapped against my apartment window like impatient fingers, matching the frantic rhythm of my own as I typed on my phone. The dim glow from my screen illuminated the dark circles under my eyes. Souvenirs from 3 sleepless nights caring for Emma, my feverish 4-year-old daughter who finally slumbered in the next room. I tucked myself deeper into the worn cushions of my secondhand couch, the faint scent of baby powder and discount fabric softener enveloping me like a familiar embrace. "Please, just one more extension," I whispered to myself as I composed the text to Mike, my ex and Emma's perpetually absent father. 3 months behind on child support, and suddenly unreachable when the rent came due. I needed to remind him that our daughter existed, that we were drowning. The radiator in the corner clanked and sputtered, fighting a losing battle against October's chill that seeped through the thin walls of our 2-bedroom walk-up. "Emma needs medicine. Rent due tomorrow. You promised $1,200 this week. Please respond." I hit send, then immediately followed with another message, my desperation making me reckless. "I know you got that money from the Castelli job. Don't make me call them directly," an empty threat. I knew nothing about Mike's employers beyond the name he'd mentioned during our last screaming match, when he'd sworn he was about to come into serious money from some job for people called Castelli. Just another broken promise from a man who specialized in them. I set my phone down and pressed my palms against my temples, willing away the headache that had taken up permanent residence there. The light flickered overhead, another reminder of all the things in my life hanging by a thread. That's when my phone buzzed, an unexpected response. My heart leapt as I fumbled for it, almost dropping it between the cushions. But instead of Mike's usual excuses, 3 words appeared on my screen that sent ice through my veins. "Who is this?" A different number. Not Mike's. In my exhaustion, I'd tapped the wrong contact, someone whose number I didn't even recognize. Probably a wrong number I'd saved at some point. I quickly typed an apology. "Sorry. Wrong person. Please ignore." The response was immediate. "What Castelli job?" My stomach clenched. I should have left it alone, but exhaustion had worn away my better judgment. I typed, "Nothing. My ex works for someone with that name. My mistake. Your name. Now." The demanding tone made my fingers hover uncertainly over the screen. Something felt wrong. Dangerous, even. I hesitated, then replied, "This was just a mix-up. I'm sorry to bother you." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then reappeared. Address. It wasn't a question. My hands began to tremble as I set the phone down without responding. Outside, the rain intensified, drumming against the windows with new urgency. I pulled my cardigan tighter around my shoulders and moved to check on Emma, needing the comfort of her peaceful breathing. Her fever had broken, finally. Small mercies. I brushed damp curls from her forehead and adjusted her unicorn nightlight, casting a soft lavender glow across her flushed cheeks. Back in the living room, my phone buzzed again. And again. And again. I approached it like it might bite, reading the messages without picking it up. "I already know who you are, Sophia Ellis." My full name stared back at me from the screen. I hadn't given my name. 1422, Westbrook Avenue, apartment 3B. My address. My breath caught in my throat. "Your daughter is feeling better?" The phone slipped from my suddenly numb fingers, clattering to the floor. How could they possibly know about Emma? About her illness? I snatched it back up, hands shaking so badly I could barely hold it. My mind raced through possibilities. Was this Mike playing some twisted game? Had I stumbled into something dangerous? My ex had always been secretive about his work, but I'd assumed it was just another of his lies. I peeked through the blinds, half expecting to see someone watching from the street below. The rain-slicked asphalt reflected the amber glow of streetlights, empty except for parked cars. I was being paranoid. Had to be. Then I saw it. A black Escalade, gleaming despite the downpour, pulling up to the curb directly in front of my building. Its headlights extinguished, but the engine remained running, exhaust forming ghostly tendrils in the cold air. As I watched, transfixed, another identical vehicle appeared, parking behind the first, then another from the opposite direction. Within minutes, 5 black SUVs had surrounded my building, forming an ominous perimeter. My phone buzzed in my hand, coming up. Not a question or a request, a statement of fact. I backed away from the window, heart hammering against my ribs. The building's front door buzzer didn't work. Hadn't for months. But in that moment, I knew it wouldn't matter. The kind of person who could discover my name, my address, my daughter's condition within minutes of a mistaken text wouldn't be stopped by a broken buzzer. I considered calling the police, but what would I say? That I'd accidentally texted someone who now knew too much about me? That expensive cars were parked legally on a public street? That I was scared of a threat that existed only in my imagination? Heavy footsteps echoed in the stairwell, unhurried but purposeful. I glanced at my apartment door, at its flimsy chain lock and cheap deadbolt. It might as well have been made of paper. The footsteps stopped outside my door. Silence stretched for 3 heartbeats, then 4. No knock came. Instead, my phone lit up with another message. Open the door, Sophia. I clutched the phone to my chest, backing toward Emma's room. I should wake her. Hide her somewhere, but where? We were 3 floors up. No fire escape. No back exit. A soft knock finally came. So controlled and measured, it somehow frightened me more than a pounding fist would have. My phone buzzed again. I'm not here to hurt you or Emma, but we need to talk about Michael. Michael. Not Mike. No one called him Michael except his mother. Against every instinct screaming for me to run, I found myself moving toward the door. Survival mode had kicked in, and somehow I knew that whatever waited on the other side wasn't something I could escape. Better to face it head on than be hunted. My hand hovered over the deadbolt. One turn and I would come face to face with whatever nightmare Mike had dragged us into. One turn and everything would change. I opened the door. The hallway light silhouetted him, casting his face in shadow while illuminating mine. I could see only the outline of broad shoulders in an impeccably tailored suit, the subtle gleam of an expensive watch, the controlled rise and fall of his chest. He smelled of cedar and leather and something metallic, like power distilled into a scent. Behind him stood another man, larger, with hands clasped before him and eyes that never stopped moving, assessing. The first man stepped forward, just enough for the dim light from my apartment to reveal his features. Sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw darkened by 5 o'clock shadow, and eyes so intensely blue they seemed to cut right through me, calculating, measuring, seeing everything. Sophia Ellis, he said, his voice a low rumble that sent warning signals racing along my spine. Not a question. Another statement of fact. I believe we need to discuss your relationship with Michael Donovan. I gripped the doorframe for support, my knees threatening to buckle. Who are you? His lips curved into something too predatory to be called a smile. My name is Alessio Castelli, and your ex-boyfriend has stolen something very valuable from my family. In that moment, I realized my desperate text hadn't just reached the wrong number. It had reached the exact wrong person in the entire city. The man Michael had robbed, the man whose name I'd so carelessly dropped. And now he was at my door, with black cars surrounding my building and men who moved like shadows, all because of one mistaken text that had sealed my fate. I tried to close the door, a reflexive, futile gesture. His hand shot out, palm flat against the wood, stopping it with effortless strength. Not forcing it open wider, just preventing my retreat. That would be unwise, he said quietly. His eyes flicked past me, into the apartment. Your daughter is sleeping. Let's keep it that way, shall we? The mention of Emma from his lips made my blood run cold. It was one thing to see her name in a text, another entirely to hear this dangerous man acknowledge her presence just rooms away. I don't know anything about what Mike did, I whispered, hating the tremor in my voice. We've been separated for almost a year. He barely visits Emma. Alessio's gaze remained fixed on mine, searching for lies. Yet you know enough to mention my name, to threaten him with it. It was just a name he dropped once. Said he was working a job for someone important. I was desperate. My voice broke. He owes child support, rent's due. I was bluffing. Something shifted in his expression, not softening exactly, but recalculating. The bodyguard behind him received a call, murmuring responses too low for me to hear. May I come in? Alessio asked, though it wasn't really a question. unless you'd prefer to have this conversation where your neighbors might overhear." As if summoned by his words, a door down the hall creaked open. Mrs. Abernathy, the retired nurse who sometimes watched Emma for me, peeked out, her eyes widening at the sight of two imposing men at my door. "Everything all right, Sophie?" she called, her voice wavering but determined. Alessio turned slightly, offering her a smile that transformed his entire demeanor, suddenly charming, non-threatening. "Just bringing Sophie some paperwork from the office. Sorry to disturb you so late, ma'am." Mrs. Abernathy hesitated, glancing between us. I forced a smile. "It's fine, Mrs. A. Thank you." She nodded uncertainly before retreating, the click of her lock echoing in the hallway. "Office paperwork," I said flatly when we were alone again. "Is that what you call this? Seemed better than your ex stole from me and now I'm here to collect." He replied, voice low. "Now, may I come in? I promise you and Emma will be safer if you cooperate." The threat was velvet-wrapped, but unmistakable. I stepped back, allowing him into my small apartment. His presence immediately seemed to shrink the space, as if the air itself made way for him. The bodyguard remained outside, positioning himself beside my door. "Anton will ensure we're not disturbed," Alessio explained, noting my glance at the man now guarding my apartment. He surveyed my living room, the shabby furniture, the basket of unfolded laundry, Emma's scattered toys, with an unreadable expression. "Tell me what Mike took," I said, folding my arms across my chest, trying to reclaim some control in a situation that was spiraling beyond my grasp, "and why you think I would know anything about it." Alessio unbuttoned his suit jacket, a casual gesture that nonetheless made me acutely aware of the gun I was certain he carried, and met my eyes with unsettling directness. "Michael Donovan didn't just take money from me, Sophia. He took information that could get people killed, including, potentially, his own daughter." If you enjoyed this first part of She Texts the Mafia Boss by Mistake, don't forget to like and subscribe to see what happens when Sophia faces the dangerous Alessio Castelli. Will she protect her ex, or will she choose her daughter's safety? Hit that notification bell to find out in the next installment. "My daughter has nothing to do with this," I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite the fear coursing through me. I positioned myself between Alessio and the hallway leading to Emma's room, a futile gesture against someone who clearly had resources I couldn't begin to comprehend. Alessio remained standing, his presence dominating my small living room. "I'm afraid that's where you're wrong. The moment Michael decided to betray me, everyone connected to him became involved." He gestured toward the couch. "Sit down, Sophia. This will be easier if we're both comfortable." There was nothing comfortable about this situation, but I sank onto the couch anyway, perching on its edge, ready to bolt despite having nowhere to run. Alessio didn't join me. Instead, he moved to the window, peering through the blinds at the street below where his men waited in their vehicles. "Michael worked for me for 3 years, he said, his back to me. Nothing significant, mainly running numbers, making deliveries. He wasn't important enough to know much about my business." He turned, fixing me with those piercing blue eyes. "Until 6 weeks ago, when he was tasked with delivering a flash drive containing sensitive information. And he stole it," I finished, the pieces falling into place. "Not just stole it, made copies, started shopping it around to my competitors." Alessio's jaw tightened. "Information that could dismantle operations I've spent decades building, that could get my people arrested or killed." I rubbed my temples, a fresh wave of exhaustion washing over me. That sounds exactly like something Mike would do, always looking for the easy score. I looked up at him, but I haven't seen or heard from him in weeks, except for texts asking for more time on the child support. Whatever he took, whatever he's doing with it, I'm not part of it. Alessio crossed the room in 2 smooth strides, picking up a framed photo from my bookshelf. It showed me and Emma at the park last summer, her face smeared with ice cream, both of us laughing. His fingers traced the edge of the frame with unexpected gentleness. "You have a beautiful daughter," he said quietly. "She has your smile." A chill ran through me at his words, at the way he studied Emma's image. "Please don't." "I'm not threatening her, Sophia." He set the photo down carefully. "I'm explaining why you're already involved, whether you chose to be or not. Michael has put a target on both your backs." "What do you mean?" The information he stole, it doesn't just compromise me. It compromises people who make me look like a saint by comparison. He sat down in the armchair across from me, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. Right now, there are at least 3 other organizations hunting for him, and by extension, for anyone who might lead to him. I swallowed hard, my throat suddenly dry. I told you, I don't know where he is. I believe you. His response surprised me, but they won't. And they won't ask as politely as I am. A hysterical laugh escaped me. This is polite? Surrounding my building with armed men? Tracking my phone? Threatening me and my daughter? If I wanted to threaten you, you'd know it, he said, his tone matter of fact rather than menacing. The cars outside aren't just to intimidate you, they're a security perimeter, and I haven't touched your phone. Your ex-boyfriend gave me your number months ago, listed you as his emergency contact. I stared at him in disbelief. That's impossible. He needed to provide a family contact when he started working for me, said you were still on good terms. Alessio's mouth twisted in what might have been amusement. Clearly, he lied about that too. My mind raced, trying to process this new information. Mike had used me as his emergency contact for a job with the Mafia? The absurdity of it would have been laughable if it weren't so terrifying. As for knowing about your daughter's illness, Alessio continued, you've been filling prescriptions at Westside Pharmacy. My business owns that building. I hugged myself tighter, feeling exposed. So what do you want from me? If you believe I don't know where Mike is, I want to find him before my competitors do. And you're going to help me. How am I supposed to do that when I can't even get him to answer my texts? Because you have something he wants. Alessio nodded toward the hallway where Emma slept. His daughter. The one thing he might actually care about. I stood up abruptly, fury momentarily overtaking fear. You are not using my daughter as bait. In one fluid motion, Alessio rose to meet me, his height forcing me to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. I'm offering you protection, Sophia. For both of you. Because believe me when I tell you, if the Bratva finds him first, they won't hesitate to use Emma to draw him out. And their methods won't be nearly as humane as mine. The word Bratva hung in the air between us. Russian Mafia. I'd heard enough news stories to understand the threat wasn't empty. What exactly are you proposing? I asked, hating how my voice shook. You and Emma come with me tonight. I move you to a secure location. You contact Michael. Tell him you need to see him urgently, that Emma is asking for him. He won't come just for that. Then tell him whatever will work, that you're in trouble, that Emma is worse, that you've found something of his the police would be interested in. Alessio shrugged. You know which buttons to push better than I do. And if I refuse, his expression hardened, then I leave. Take my men with me. Remove the only protection standing between you and people who would use far more persuasive methods to get what they want. My gaze darted to the window, to the black vehicles still waiting outside. They no longer seemed threatening. They seemed like a barrier against something worse. I need to think, I whispered. You have 5 minutes. Alessio stepped back, checking his watch. Pack whatever you and Emma need for a few days. Nothing more. As if on cue, a soft cry came from Emma's room. Mommy? Alessio's eyes met mine. Go to her. But remember, this isn't just about Michael anymore. It's about keeping your daughter safe. I hurried down the hallway, my heart pounding. Emma was sitting up in bed, her favorite stuffed rabbit clutched to her chest, her forehead glistening with sweat. Hey, sweetheart, I murmured, sitting on the edge of her bed and brushing damp curls from her face. How are you feeling? My throat hurts, she said, her voice raspy. Who's talking out there? Just a friend of Mommy's. I forced a smile. We need to go on a little trip, okay? Just for a few days. Her eyes widened. Like a vacation? Something like that. I opened her dresser, pulling out clothes with shaking hands. We need to pack quickly. Is Daddy coming? The hope in her voice shattered my heart. Despite everything, she still loved him, still asked for him. Maybe, I said, not knowing what else to tell her. We'll see. I helped her dress in jeans and a sweater, packed a small backpack with her essential clothes, medications, and Mr. Flopsy the rabbit. The whole time I felt as if I were moving through a dream or a nightmare. This couldn't be happening. I couldn't be packing up my daughter in the middle of the night to go with a man who had just appeared at my door. A man connected to whatever criminal activity Mike had gotten himself tangled in. But what choice did I have? When we emerged from the bedroom, Alessio was speaking quietly into his phone. He ended the call as soon as he saw us, his expression softening almost imperceptibly when his gaze landed on Emma. She half hid behind me, suddenly shy. "Hello, Emma," he said, his voice gentler than I'd heard it yet. He crouched down to her level. "My name is Alessio. I'm going to help you and your mom for a little while." Emma studied him with the unfiltered curiosity only children possess. "Are you a doctor?" "Mommy said I'm still sick." A smile ghosted across his lips. "No, not a doctor. But I know some very good ones who can help you feel better." She seemed to consider this, then nodded solemnly. "Okay. Can Mr. Flopsy come too?" "Of course." Alessio straightened, meeting my eyes over Emma's head. "Do you have everything?" I held up my hastily packed duffel bag. "Enough for a few days." He nodded once, then spoke into an earpiece I hadn't noticed before. "Bringing them down now. Have the car ready." The bodyguard, Anton, opened the door as we approached. Emma clung to my hand, suddenly apprehensive about leaving our apartment in the middle of the night. I couldn't blame her. Every step felt like I was walking deeper into quicksand. "It'll be okay," I whispered to her, though I had no reason to believe it would be. The hallway was empty as we made our way to the stairs, Alessio in front, Anton behind us. Like bookends, I thought hysterically. Or prison guards. "Where are we going?" I asked as we descended the stairs. "Somewhere safe," was all Alessio said. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the streets slick and gleaming under the streetlights. One of the black Escalades idled directly in front of the building's entrance, its engine a low, powerful hum. A driver held the back door open as we approached. Emma balked at the sight of the imposing vehicle and the stone-faced men surrounding it. "Mommy, I'm scared." I crouched down, looking into her eyes. "It's just a fancy car, baby, like in the movies. We're going on an adventure, remember?" She didn't look convinced, but nodded bravely. I lifted her into the SUV and climbed in after her, settling her on my lap. The interior was all black leather and subtle luxury, smelling of expensive cologne and new car. Alessio slid in beside us, the door closing with a solid thunk that sounded final, irrevocable. "Take us home, Vincent," he instructed the driver, who nodded and pulled away from the curb. The other SUVs fell into formation around us, one in front, one behind, the others peeling off in different directions. "Home?" I questioned, tension coiling tighter in my chest. "My residence," Alessio clarified. "It has the highest security of any property I own. You'll be safe there until we locate Michael." Emma had already started to doze against my shoulder, exhaustion and illness pulling her back to sleep despite the strange circumstances. I envied her ability to escape, however temporarily. "This is kidnapping," I said softly, mindful of Emma's presence. Alessio's eyes flashed in the darkness of the car. "This is protection. If I wanted to kidnap you, you wouldn't have had time to pack." The truth of his words silenced me. We rode in tense quiet for several minutes, the only sounds Emma's soft breathing and the occasional murmur from the driver's radio. "I still don't understand why Mike would steal from you," I finally said. "He's dishonest, selfish, and unreliable. But he's not stupid. He must have known you'd come after him." "People make poor decisions when they're desperate," Alessio replied, "or when they think they've found a way to solve all their problems at once." "What was on that flash drive that's worth all this?" His jaw tightened. "Names, locations, financial records. Enough to dismantle networks it took generations to build." I shifted Emma to a more comfortable position, her weight growing heavy against me. "And you think he'll just hand it over if I ask?" "No." Alessio's gaze was unflinching. "I think he'll come running when he realizes I have you and his daughter. And then he'll have no choice but to return what he stole." The cold calculation in his voice sent a shiver through me. "You're using us as bait after all." "I prefer to think of it as leveraging available resources." His eyes dropped to Emma's sleeping form, then back to me. But yes, essentially. I turned away, watching the city lights blur past the tinted windows. We were heading toward the wealthier part of town, where the streets grew wider and the houses sat back from the road behind imposing gates and manicured lawns. "If anything happens to my daughter because of this," I began. "Nothing will happen to her," Alessio cut me off, his tone leaving no room for argument. "You have my word." "The word of a criminal," I muttered. "The word of a man who understands the value of family," he countered. "More than your ex-boyfriend ever did, it seems." Before I could respond, the SUV slowed, turning onto a private drive flanked by stone pillars. A wrought iron gate swung open to admit us, closing immediately behind our convoy. The driveway curved through expertly landscaped grounds before revealing a mansion that loomed against the night sky, all clean lines and modern angles, glass and stone merging seamlessly. "Welcome to my home, Sophia," Alessio said as the car came to a stop in the circular driveway. "For now it's yours too." As the driver opened the door and the cool night air rushed in, I held Emma closer, wondering what I'd gotten us into, and how we would ever get out again. The interior of Alessio's mansion was exactly what I expected, and nothing like I imagined. Soaring ceilings, marble floors, artwork that probably cost more than my entire life, all the trappings of wealth I'd anticipated. But there was also an understated elegance, a warmth I hadn't expected from a man like him. No gaudy displays of excess, just quiet, confident luxury. A woman in her 60s with silver-streaked black hair and sharp eyes appeared in the foyer as we entered. Her posture was straight as a ruler, her clothing simple but clearly expensive. "Alessio," she said, her slight accent, Italian, I guessed, wrapping around his name with familiar affection. Her eyes moved to me, then to Emma sleeping in my arms. "I've prepared the East Suite as you requested." "Thank you, Rosa." Alessio placed a hand briefly on her shoulder. "This is Sophia and her daughter Emma. They'll be staying with us for a while." Rosa's expression gave nothing away, but I wondered how often Alessio brought strangers, hostages, to his home in the middle of the night. "The child is ill?" she asked, noting Emma's flushed cheeks. "Recovering from a fever," I supplied, shifting Emma's weight. She was getting heavy, but I was reluctant to let her go in this unfamiliar place. "Doctor, Markov will be here in the morning," Alessio told me. "Until then, Rosa will show you to your rooms and get you settled." "Come," Rosa said, already turning toward a sweeping staircase. "The little one needs proper rest." I hesitated, looking back at Alessio. "And then what? We just wait here while you hunt down Mike?" "We'll discuss the next steps in the morning." His tone made it clear the conversation was over for now. "Try to get some sleep, Sophia. You're safe here." Safe. The word felt hollow. I'd never been less safe in my life, caught between a ruthless criminal and whatever forces were hunting for what Mike had stolen. But my arms ached from carrying Emma, and exhaustion pulled at every cell in my body. Whatever came next would have to wait until morning. I followed Rosa up the stairs, down a corridor lined with what looked like original artwork, and into a suite that was larger than my entire apartment. A spacious sitting room opened into a bedroom with a king-sized bed draped in luxurious linens. Through another door, I glimpsed a second bedroom, smaller but equally elegant. "For the little one," Rosa explained, seeing my glance. "Though perhaps tonight she stays with you, yes?" "Yes," I agreed, gently laying Emma down on the main bed. She stirred but didn't wake, curling around Mr. Flopsy with a soft sigh. Rosa disappeared into what turned out to be a massive bathroom, returning with a cool cloth that she handed to me. "For her fever, there are clean pajamas in the dresser. They may be big, but they will serve for tonight. Tomorrow we can arrange for more suitable clothes." I pressed the cloth to Emma's forehead, wondering how many times this woman had tended to Alessio's guests. "Thank you." Rosa nodded, her sharp eyes taking my measure. "There is food in the small refrigerator if you are hungry. Breakfast is at 8, but for the child we can prepare something earlier if needed. This is all very accommodating for a kidnapping," I said, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. Rosa's expression didn't change. "Mr. Castelli does not kidnap women and children. Whatever has brought you here, you are guests in this house, my house, as much as his." She moved toward the door. Rest now. Morning comes quickly. After she left, I explored our gilded cage. The suite was luxurious in every detail. Egyptian cotton sheets, plush towels, toiletries that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. The windows overlooked manicured grounds illuminated by subtle landscape lighting. And beyond them, a high wall topped with what I suspected was security wiring. No escape there. I changed Emma into a pair of silk pajamas that swallowed her small frame, then found a t-shirt for myself in the dresser. My own clothes felt grimy after the stress of the night, but I was too exhausted to shower. I curled up beside Emma on the massive bed, listening to her breathing, trying to quiet the panic that threatened to overwhelm me now that we were alone. What would happen when Alessio found Mike? What would he do to him? And what would happen to us afterward? I couldn't imagine he'd simply let us go. Not when we'd seen his face, his home, knew about whatever Mike had stolen. People like Alessio Castelli didn't leave loose ends. Sleep came in fitful bursts, interrupted by nightmares of black cars and men with cold eyes. When morning light finally filtered through the gauzy curtains, I felt as if I hadn't slept at all. Emma woke in better spirits, her fever gone, though a slight cough remained. She explored our suite with wide-eyed wonder, touching the velvet drapes and bouncing experimentally on the plush sofa. "Is this a hotel, Mommy?" she asked, peering into the marble bathroom with its sunken tub and rainfall shower. "Sort of," I hedged, not knowing how to explain our situation in terms a 4-year-old could understand. "It's Mr. Alessio's house. We're going to stay here for a little while." "It's pretty," she declared, then frowned, "but I didn't bring my frozen nightlight." "I'm sure we can find something," I assured her, relieved that this was her biggest concern. "Let's get dressed, okay? There's supposed to be breakfast soon." We had just finished dressing in clothes from our hastily packed bags when a knock came at the door. I tensed, then called, "Come in." It was Rosa, carrying a tray laden with fruit, pastries, and a small pot of what smelled like hot chocolate. "For the little one," she explained. "Mr. Castelli thought she might prefer to eat up here this morning while you speak with the doctor." My hackles rose instantly. "I'm not leaving Emma with strangers." Rosa set the tray down on a table near the window. "The doctor is here to see her, not you. And I will stay with her while you speak with Mr. Castelli. He is waiting for you in his study." "I'm not going anywhere without my daughter," I insisted. Rosa's expression softened slightly. "Sophia, if Mr. Castelli wanted to separate you from your child, he would not need my help to do so. He respects that you are a mother protecting her bambina, but there are matters he wishes to discuss that are not for a child's ears." I looked at Emma, who was already eyeing the chocolate croissants on the tray with undisguised interest. "Who's the doctor?" "Dr. Markov is Mr. Castelli's personal physician. He treats Mr. Castelli's family and his most valued employees." Rosa poured a small cup of hot chocolate. "He is very good with children." As if summoned by her words, another knock came, and a man entered after Rosa's acknowledgement. He was middle-aged, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, and a gentle smile that immediately put me more at ease. "You must be Sophia," he said, his accent vaguely Eastern European. "And this must be Emma. I'm Dr. Markov." He set his medical bag on a nearby table. "I understand you've had a fever, young lady." Emma nodded solemnly, already warming to his grandfatherly demeanor. "My throat hurts too. Well, let's have a look, shall we?" He glanced at me. With your permission, of course. I hesitated, torn between staying with Emma and finding out what Alessio wanted. Rosa seemed to sense my indecision. "Mr. Castelli was quite insistent," she said quietly. "It concerns your ex-husband." My stomach dropped. Had they found Mike already? 15 minutes, I told her. "Then I'm coming back no matter what Alessio wants to discuss." Dr. Markov had already engaged Emma in conversation about Mr. Flopsy, drawing her out of her shyness with practiced ease. I kissed the top of her head. "I'll be right back, baby. Dr. Markov is going to check your throat, and Rosa will stay with you." "Can I have hot chocolate?" Emma asked, already distracted by the promise of a treat she rarely got at home. "Of course," I said, managing a smile. "Be good, okay?" I followed Rosa's directions down the corridor, trying to memorize the layout of the house. a habit born from years of watching crime shows that now seemed grimly relevant. The study was located on the main floor, a masculine space of leather, dark wood, and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. Alessio stood near a window, speaking on the phone in rapid Italian. He was dressed more casually today, dark jeans and a charcoal sweater that probably cost more than my monthly rent, but less intimidating than last night's suit. He ended his call as I entered, slipping the phone into his pocket. Sophia, I trust you slept well? As well as can be expected when you've been forcibly relocated in the middle of the night, I replied, crossing my arms over my chest. Rosa said you have news about Mike. Please sit. He gestured to one of the leather armchairs positioned before a large desk. I remained standing. I told Rosa 15 minutes. Whatever you have to say it quickly. Something like respect flickered in his eyes. Very well. My men located Michael's apartment early this morning. My heart stuttered. And? He wasn't there. But it was clear he left in a hurry, recently too, within the last 24 hours. Alessio moved behind his desk, opening a folder. We found these. He slid several photographs across the desk. I approached cautiously and looked down at images of Emma at the park, outside her preschool, playing in our apartment building's small courtyard. In some, I was with her. In others, she was alone. What is this? I whispered, my blood running cold. Michael has been watching you, or having you watched. Alessio's voice was tight with contained anger. These were pinned to a wall in his apartment, along with these. More photos joined the first set, these of men I didn't recognize. Middle-aged, stern-faced, expensively dressed. One was caught mid-conversation with what looked like bodyguards. Another was entering a restaurant. Viktor Petrov and Nikolai Baranov. Alessio identified them. High-ranking members of the Russian organization I mentioned. The same people who would very much like to acquire what Michael stole. I sank into the chair, my legs suddenly unable to support me. I don't understand. Why would Mike have photos of Emma? Of these men? Because he's planning something. Alessio sat on the edge of his desk, closer to me than I was comfortable with. Something that involves using his daughter as leverage, or possibly as a distraction. That's insane. Mike is selfish and irresponsible, but he wouldn't endanger Emma, wouldn't he? Alessio's gaze was penetrating. The man who abandoned his sick child, who fails to provide support, who involved your name with some of the most dangerous people in this city. Put that way, it was harder to defend Mike's character. Still, using Emma as part of whatever scheme he was planning seemed beyond even his moral bankruptcy. There's more, Alessio continued. We found this. He handed me a small pink backpack, Emma's favorite, the one with unicorns that she'd outgrown last year. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside were her passport, which I'd thought was still in my desk drawer at home, a change of clothes, her favorite book, and an envelope containing several $1,000s in cash. He was planning to take her, I whispered, the reality crashing down on me. He was going to kidnap our daughter. It appears so. Alessio's voice had softened. I believe Michael intended to use what he stole from me to negotiate safe passage out of the country. And he planned to take Emma with him, either out of some misguided paternal instinct, or because he knew having his daughter would make it harder for me to eliminate him. Tears burned behind my eyes. All this time, I'd been trying to get Mike to be more involved in Emma's life, and now I discovered he'd been watching us, planning to snatch her away. The betrayal cut deeper than I'd thought possible. How do I know you didn't plant this? I demanded, grasping at straws. Maybe this is all just an elaborate setup to get me to help you. To what end? Alessio asked reasonably. I could have forced your cooperation last night. I don't need elaborate deceptions. He was right, which only made the truth more devastating. I pressed my hands to my face, trying to control the emotions threatening to overwhelm me. What happens now? I finally asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Now we move forward with our original plan, but with some adjustments. Alessio returned to his chair behind the desk. You'll contact Michael. Tell him you know what he's planning, that you found Emma's passport missing. Tell him if he wants to see his daughter, he needs to meet you. And then you'll be waiting to grab him, I finished. Yes, but now there's an additional complication. Alessio steepled his fingers. If Michael was monitoring your apartment, he may already know you're gone. And if he's desperate enough, he might make contact with Petrov or Baranov. You think he'd sell your information to these Russians? I think a man who would use his 4-year-old daughter as a human shield is capable of anything. Alessio's expression was grim. Which is why we need to move quickly. I thought of Emma upstairs with the doctor, blissfully unaware of the danger surrounding her. I want guarantees, I said suddenly. If I help you find Mike, I want your word that Emma and I walk away from this safely. New identities if necessary, enough money to start over somewhere Mike can never find us. Alessio studied me with newfound interest. You're negotiating with me now. I'm a mother protecting her child, I countered, throwing Rosa's words back at him. Isn't that what you said you respected? A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Indeed. He considered for a moment, then nodded. Help me recover what was stolen, and I'll ensure you and Emma disappear so thoroughly that neither Michael nor anyone else will ever find you unless you wish to be found. I'll need that in writing. Now he did smile, a genuine expression that transformed his features. A contract with a criminal? I'm not sure that would hold up in court, Sophia. Maybe not, but it would show good faith. Very well. He pulled a sheet of paper from a drawer, wrote several lines in elegant script, and signed it with a flourish before sliding it across to me. Satisfied? I scanned the document, a simple promise to provide new identities and financial support in exchange for my assistance in recovering his property. It was probably worthless legally, as he'd pointed out. But something told me Alessio Castelli was a man who took his signatures seriously. I'll need a phone, I said, folding the paper and tucking it into my pocket. Use mine. He offered his sleek smartphone. It can't be traced to you. I took it, my fingers brushing his momentarily. An unexpected jolt ran through me at the contact. Not fear. Something else I didn't want to examine too closely. I dialed Mike's number from memory, half expecting it to go straight to voicemail as it had so many times before. Instead, he answered on the second ring. Who is this? His voice was tense, wary. It's me, I said, watching Alessio's face as he listened. We need to talk, Mike. Now. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. For a moment, I thought Mike had hung up. Sophie? His voice was barely a whisper. Where are you calling from? This isn't your number. I'm borrowing a phone, I said, trying to keep my voice steady despite the rage and fear swirling inside me. Mine is unavailable right now. Are you okay? Is Emma... Don't, I cut him off, my voice hardening. Don't pretend you care about Emma now. I found her passport missing from my drawer, Mike. And that pink unicorn backpack she outgrew last year, the one you insisted on keeping, I know what you were planning. Another silence. This one heavier. Beside me, Alessio's expression remained impassive, but I could feel the intensity radiating from him as he listened. It's not what you think, Mike finally said, his voice taking on that wheedling tone I knew too well, the one he used when caught in a lie. I was just preparing in case what? In case you needed to kidnap our daughter and flee the country? My hand gripped the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. Or were you planning to use her as a shield against the people you stole from? Mike's sharp intake of breath told me I'd hit a nerve. Who have you been talking to? It doesn't matter. What matters is that I know what you did, and I know you've been watching us. Those photos in your apartment, I improvised, following Alessio's slight nod of encouragement. Did you take them yourself, or did you hire someone to stalk your own daughter? Sophie, listen to me. Mike's voice dropped lower, urgent. You don't understand what's happening. These people, they're dangerous. Which people, Mike? The Castellis? Or the Russians you're trying to sell to? I met Alessio's gaze as I mentioned his name, saw his eyes narrow slightly. How do you... Mike stopped himself. Where are you right now? Tell me exactly where you and Emma are. Somewhere safe, I replied, the irony of the statement not lost on me. Safer than we were with you watching us, planning God knows what. You don't know who you're dealing with, Mike hissed. Whatever they've told you, I know exactly who I'm dealing with, I interrupted, all of them. And right now, you're the one I trust least. Alessio held out his hand, gesturing for the phone. I hesitated. then shook my head slightly. This was my conversation to control. "I want to see Emma," Mike said suddenly. "I need to make sure she's okay." "Why? So you can finish what you started? Take her away from me?" My voice cracked despite my efforts to remain calm. "No, Sophie, please. It's complicated. I did something. I made a mistake. But everything I've done was to protect you both." The desperation in his voice almost sounded genuine. Almost. "Prove it," I challenged. "If you really want to protect us, then meet me. Face to face. Bring whatever you took, and we'll figure this out together." Alessio nodded approvingly, his eyes never leaving my face. "I can't do that," Mike replied. "It's too dangerous. They're watching me, Sophie. Probably watching you, too." "Fine. Then I'll go to the police. I'll tell them everything. About the photos, the passport, the backpack, about your new employers." I took a calculated risk. I'm sure they'd be very interested in what's on that flash drive, too. "You don't have it," Mike said quickly, confirming what Alessio had told me. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" "You left copies in your apartment, Mike. Not very smart." Another improvisation, but from the way Mike's breathing changed, it hit its mark. "Don't go to the police," he said after a moment. "You have no idea what you'd be starting." "Then meet me. Tonight." I glanced at Alessio, who mouthed an address. "There's a coffee shop on Riverside Drive. Bluebird Coffee. 8 o'clock. That's too public." "Exactly. I'm not stupid, Mike. Public place or nothing." Another long pause. I could almost hear him weighing his options, trying to determine if this was a trap, which of course it was. "Fine," he finally agreed. 8 o'clock. But just you. No Emma. "Of course not. Unlike you, I don't endanger our daughter." I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. "Sophie, He seemed about to say something else, then thought better of it. "I'll see you tonight." The line went dead. I handed the phone back to Alessio, suddenly exhausted by the exchange. "Well done," he said, slipping the device into his pocket. "Very convincing." "It wasn't an act," I replied, standing up. Everything I said to him was true. Alessio rose as well, moving around the desk to stand before me. "You understand he won't come alone. He'll have people watching, possibly even Petrov's men if he's made contact with them." I assumed as much. I lifted my chin. "Which is why I'm not going either." His eyebrows rose slightly. "That wasn't our agreement. Our agreement was that I help you find Mike and recover what he stole. I've just arranged that for you." I crossed my arms defensively. I'm not putting myself in the crossfire of whatever is going to happen tonight. For a tense moment, I thought he might insist. Instead, he inclined his head in acknowledgement. "Fair enough. My men can handle the meeting point." He studied me with renewed interest. "You're smarter than Michael gave you credit for." "Most men underestimate me," I replied, thinking of all the times Mike had dismissed my concerns, my intelligence, my instincts. "I won't make that mistake." The intensity in Alessio's voice sent an unexpected shiver down my spine. "Now, shall we check on your daughter? Dr. Markov should be finished by now." We found Emma sitting cross-legged on the bed, a now empty cup of hot chocolate beside her, watching cartoons on a tablet I didn't recognize. Dr. Markov was packing up his medical bag while Rosa tidied the breakfast tray. "Mommy." Emma's face lit up when she saw me. "Doctor." "Markov gave me medicine that tastes like strawberries, and Rosa said I can have pancakes for lunch if I want." "That's wonderful, sweetie." I sat beside her on the bed, checking her forehead automatically. Cool to the touch. Her fever was definitely gone. "A mild throat infection," Dr. Markov informed me. "Nothing serious, but I've prescribed an antibiotic to be safe. Rosa has the medication and instructions." He smiled at Emma. "She's a very brave patient." "Thank you," I said, genuinely grateful. Whatever else Alessio might be, he'd kept his word about taking care of Emma. After the doctor left, Alessio spoke quietly with Rosa in Italian. She nodded and departed, leaving the three of us alone in the suite. "Emma," Alessio said, his voice gentler than I'd heard it before. "Would you like to see the garden? There's a fountain with fish in it." Emma's eyes widened with excitement. Real fish? Can I feed them? Of course. He looked to me for permission. Part of me wanted to refuse, to keep Emma as far from him as possible, but the rational part knew that if he'd wanted to harm her, he'd had ample opportunity already. And after last night's revelations about Mike, I was beginning to reevaluate who the real threat was. Okay, I conceded, but I'm coming too. The gardens were even more impressive in daylight, meticulously maintained grounds stretching toward the security wall I'd noticed from the window. Emma ran ahead to the fountain, a massive stone creation with water cascading over multiple tiers into a wide basin where orange and white koi swam lazily. Rosa appeared with a small container of fish food, showing Emma how to sprinkle it gently on the water's surface. My daughter's delighted giggles as the fish swarmed toward the food loosened something tight in my chest. Despite everything, she was happy in this moment, safe. She's resilient, Alessio observed, standing beside me as we watched Emma. Like her mother. I glanced at him, trying to reconcile the dangerous man who'd appeared at my door last night with the one who'd arranged for a doctor to treat my daughter, who'd provided a safe haven when I hadn't even realized we needed one. What happens after tonight? I asked quietly, assuming you get what you want from Mike. I honor our agreement. Alessio kept his eyes on Emma. New identities, financial security, a fresh start somewhere Michael can never find you. And Mike? What happens to him? Alessio's expression hardened. That depends on him. If he cooperates fully, returns everything he took, he might survive this. And if he doesn't? His silence was answer enough. I should have felt horrified, should have protested. Instead, I felt a cold detachment as I thought of the photos in Mike's apartment, the packed backpack, the missing passport. The evidence of his willingness to use our daughter as a pawn in his dangerous game. I don't want to know, I finally said. Whatever happens, I don't want details. Alessio nodded once, accepting my tacit consent. The day passed in a strange limbo. Emma, oblivious to the tension surrounding her, enjoyed the luxury of Alessio's home, the gardens, the enormous television, the chef who prepared whatever she requested for lunch. I watched her bloom under this attention, guilt gnawing at me for the struggling existence I'd provided compared to all this. As evening approached, Alessio disappeared to prepare for the meeting with Mike. I put Emma to bed early, exhausted from her illness and the excitement of the day. She fell asleep clutching Mr. Flopsy, her breathing deep and even. I was sitting in the suite sitting room, staring unseeingly at a book I'd pulled from the shelves, when Alessio returned. He'd changed back into a suit, dark and impeccably tailored. The businessman was gone. The dangerous man from last night had returned. It's time, he said simply. I set the book aside. Be careful. Mike can be unpredictable when he's cornered. I've dealt with far more dangerous men than Michael Donovan. He paused, then added, but I appreciate your concern. I wasn't sure why I'd expressed it. Stockholm Syndrome, perhaps, or simply the realization that Alessio's survival meant safety for Emma and me. Will you... I hesitated. Will you let me know when it's over? Of course. He moved toward the door, then stopped. Lock this behind me. Don't open it for anyone except Rosa or myself. Understand? I nodded, suddenly afraid in a way I hadn't been all day. The reality of what was about to happen crashed down on me. Mike confronted by Alessio and his men, possibly by these Russians as well. Blood would be shed tonight, maybe Mike's. Alessio, I called as he reached the door. He turned, one eyebrow raised in question. Thank you. For protecting Emma. Whatever else happens, thank you for that. Something shifted in his expression. A softening around the eyes, a slight relaxation of his jaw. He inclined his head in acknowledgement, then was gone. I locked the door as instructed and returned to Emma's bedside, watching her sleep. How had we come to this? Sheltered in the home of a criminal, waiting to hear if my child's father would survive the night. The bizarre twist of fate that had led me to text the wrong number. Alessio's number seemed too coincidental to be chance, almost as if some cosmic force had intervened to protect us from Mike's plans. Hours passed. I dozed fitfully in the chair beside Emma's bed, jerking awake at every distant sound. It was after midnight when a soft knock came at the suite door. I crept to answer it, heart pounding. Alessio stood in the hallway, his suit jacket removed, the crisp white of his shirt contrasting with a dark stain on one sleeve that I refused to examine too closely. "It's done," he said simply. "Mike?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted the answer. "Alive. For now." His expression revealed nothing. He's been persuasive about his willingness to cooperate. Relief flooded me, though I wasn't entirely sure why. After everything Mike had done, perhaps I should have wished him dead, but he was still Emma's father, still the man I'd once loved enough to create a child with. The flash drive? Recovered, along with all copies. Alessio loosened his tie, a strangely vulnerable gesture from a man who maintained such rigid control. "You and Emma are safe now. From him. From Petrov's men. From all of it." "So what happens now?" I asked, echoing my question from earlier. "Now," Alessio said, his blue eyes holding mine. "We honor our agreement. New identities are already being arranged. By this time tomorrow, Sophia and Emma Ellis will no longer exist." I nodded, accepting this reality. "And after that, we just disappear?" "That would be safest," he agreed. Then, more hesitantly, "Unless you'd prefer an alternative arrangement." "Yeah, what alternative?" "Stay." The word hung between us, unexpected and charged with meaning. Not as a prisoner or a guest, as something else. I stared at him, trying to read the intention behind his offer. "Why would you want that?" "Because in the span of 24 hours, you've shown more courage, intelligence, and loyalty than most people I've known my entire life." He stepped closer, not touching me, but near enough that I could feel the heat radiating from him. "Because I protect what's mine, Sophia. And I find myself reluctant to let you go." The possessiveness in his voice should have frightened me. Instead, it awakened something I'd thought long dead after years with Mike's neglect and betrayal. A sense of being truly seen, valued. "I can't answer that tonight," I said honestly. "Too much has happened. I need time." "Of course." He stepped back, professional distance restored. "The offer remains open. Think about it." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. "Get some rest," he said, turning to leave. "Tomorrow will bring new beginnings. Whatever you decide." After he left, I returned to Emma's bedside, watching the gentle rise and fall of her chest. New beginnings. A life free from Mike's shadow, from financial struggle, from the constant fear that had become our normal without me even realizing it. But at what cost? Aligning ourselves with Alessio Castelli meant entering a world I'd only glimpsed. A world of power and danger and moral compromises. Could I justify that choice for the security it offered? For the protection of those piercing blue eyes that had seen my worth when no one else had? Emma stirred in her sleep, a small smile playing on her lips as she dreamed. Whatever I decided, it would be for her. To give her the safety and stability she deserved. To ensure no one could ever use her as a pawn again. As dawn broke over the mansion's gardens, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, I made my decision. I would accept Alessio's offer. Not out of fear or gratitude, but from a place of strength. I would enter his world on my terms, with eyes wide open. One mistaken text had changed everything, had brought a dangerous man to my door. Black cars surrounding my home, but in that danger, I'd found an unexpected sanctuary. And perhaps in time, something more. I sent a silent prayer of thanks for that fateful error, for the wrong number that had led me exactly where I needed to be. Thank you so much for joining me for this story. If you enjoyed She Texts the Mafia Boss by Mistake, please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more thrilling stories. Your comments mean the world to me. Let me know what you thought and what kind of stories you'd like to see next. Until next time, keep reading and stay mysterious.